Okay, guys, so I trust we are all fine, right? So someone asked me this question about what are some of the questions that should be asked at the port of entry. That is when you are coming, okay, when you are coming to Canada and you get to the port of entry, what are some of the questions that should be asked? Okay. All right. So when I go to the port of entry, I was fortunate they didn't ask me any tedious question or any complicated question. They asked me, they requested for my passport, they requested for my letter of introductory letter, yeah, and my admission letter as well, or my acceptance letter. So I inserted all of these documents in the passport and gave it to her. And she asked me, why am I in Canada? And I said, I'm coming to school. And she asked me school, and I said, University of Manitoba. And she again asked, what program? And I said, Masters in Agribusiness and Agricultural Economics. And she said, okay. So as I was answering, she was also glancing through my document to see whether it tallies with the information on my admission letter. And she again asked me whether I came along with meat or fish. And I said, I came along with dried fish. And they are in my luggage. And she was like, okay, thank you. Welcome to Canada. And so she just stamped on my this thing. There was a receipt, okay? So she stamped on it for me. And she gave me back my passport and my study permit. But let me tell you guys this. It's very cold. For the study permits, okay? Or when you guys would like to choose a province as a port of entry, I would advise you guys, like, that's my personal opinion, okay? I'm not, like I keep saying that, I'm not an immigration officer, I'm not an immigration lawyer, I just share my knowledge. Alright, so I advise my friends and whoever asks me a question about what's the best port of entry that I think would be best for them to use when they want to come to Canada after getting their visa approved. And I keep telling them that Toronto port of entry, for me, in my personal opinion, so far is the best. And why am I saying this? The reason is that when I go to Toronto port of entry, my study permit was already printed. Okay, my study permit was already printed. I think this policy started from my batch because it was during that period that one officer contacted the senior officer that is how he wants to go about it, and the senior officer who was a lady by then approved it and he started using it. So afterwards I asked any other friend, okay, using Toronto as a port of entry, about whether that was the same procedure they used for him or not, and he was like, oh yeah. He also got to Toronto port of entry, and before he got there, his study permit was already printed, all right, and was given to him. So at Toronto port of entry, what I experienced personally and what my other colleagues, okay, experienced was that when you get to the Toronto port of entry, your study permit is already printed. Okay, at the Toronto port of entry, your study permit is already printed. So the immigration officer will be mentioning names. After you scan your passports and your information and all that, you come and sit down, and the immigration officer will be mentioning names. So when you hear your name, you go for the study permit which is already printed, and you go and join the queue to go and meet the next officer at the back of the port. So at least you having your study permit with you, okay, you having your study permit with you, for you to enable you to glance through and all that, at least gives you the vim. Okay, it gives you the hope that, okay, so one of my legs is already in Canada, and it's left with me being able to convince the immigration officer at the back of the port of entry, okay, or at the back of the port, that you have a mission for coming to Canada. You get, so these were the questions that they asked me, or the lady at the back of the port asked me. But there are several cases whereby people are being asked about their tuition deposit receipt or their tuition fee receipt. Do you get it? And how much do they have with them, are they having physical cash and all that. Do you get it? So please, if you are coming to Canada, please be prepared. Make sure you come along. Make sure you have a file whereby you have in it your passport, your letter of introduction, or your introductory letter, your admission letter, your acceptance letter, and if you gain scholarship, please come along with your scholarship letter, and also your updated bank statement, especially to those who will be coming to Canada without any scholarship but with bank statement. Okay, mind you, when you applied for the visa, it took I know a friend whose visa was approved 5 months after the application. So imagine your visa was approved 5 months after application, the closing balance was, let's say, 400,000 Ghana cedis. How are you going to convince the immigration officer at the port of entry that 400,000 that was in their bank account 4 months ago is still in the account? How are you going to convince the immigration officer? Do you get the point? So meaning you have to get an updated bank statement to prove to him that yes, you still have that money in the account, or even more than that in the account, which is equivalent to your tuition fee and living expenses, and you're looking forward to pay your tuition or the rest of your tuition when you reach Canada or when you get to Canada. I'm talking about when the immigration officer asks you how you're going to pay for, or what's acceptance letter, or have you paid your tuition, show me proof of your tuition being paid and all that. If they ask you that question, you've not paid for your tuition. I'm saying this in favor of those coming to the University of Manitoba. University of Manitoba is not compulsory to make tuition deposits. Do you get it? Unlike other colleges, the University of Manitoba does not accept, it's not compulsory to pay your tuition, okay, before you get your letter of acceptance. You can apply for letter of acceptance immediately after getting your admission. You can apply that through the Aurora portal. So most students prefer the University of Manitoba, and most students who does not pay their tuition before arriving in Canada, but the only challenge they get is getting at the port of entry and them being asked about their tuition deposit or tuition fee receipt. So what I just said is the easiest way of convincing the immigration officer at the port of entry that you have the money still in your account and you pay for your tuition when you arrive in Canada. So please have an updated bank statement and have it on you, okay? So in case, don't just rush and give the bank statement to the immigration officer even when you've not been asked, okay, about your tuition deposit receipt. Because for me, I was not asked. Okay, I was not asked about my tuition deposit receipt. Alright? They may ask you, but in case they do not ask, don't rush to give it to them. Just have it on you and provide what you've been asked. Definitely your passport will be requested. Your study permit will be requested if it was already given to you by the other officer I mentioned. And your introductory letter to be requested, admission letter to be requested, or your acceptance letter or letter of acceptance will be requested. But they don't normally request for tuition deposit receipt. They normally request for that when you are coming to a college. Do you get it? Those coming to college are the people they normally, because most of the colleges request for tuition deposit receipts, so request for initial deposits and all that. But when you're coming to a university, they don't normally. I'm not saying this by fact. I'm only speaking from my personal opinion. And as I've already mentioned, I'm not an immigration officer. I'm not an immigration lawyer. Okay, I'm just sharing my opinion. All right. So please, let's take note of this. And TikTok, please take note of this. I don't want to violate any rule. I don't want to pretend to be an immigration officer whilst I'm not and all that. So please, let's take note of this. So thank you very much for watching this video. Please, I have my YouTube channel on my bio, whereby you can click on the YouTube logo and subscribe to my YouTube channel, because I do educate a lot of people about Canada immigration and styles and Canada school scholarships and all that. So please, if you've not subscribed to my YouTube channel, kindly do so. Thank you very much for watching this video. Bye.